Hello Exiles, Redlord here, and welcome to a build guide on the warrior build that I've been playing for the past week or so. And yeah, this is actually my first, what I believe would be a proper build guide. And yeah, feedback would be very much appreciated. All of my previous builds were more of a showcases of a build, and this time I believe I can call it properly a build guide, because hopefully it will be filled with all the information and questions you need. If you've got any more, of course, ask me in the comments, and feedback would be very much appreciated, because as I said, this is my first build guide. I wanted to wait till I feel confident enough to make basically a video that I could properly call a build guide. So because I wanted to meet certain standards, since there's lots of really good PoE content creators, I kind of look up to them, and I wanted to just meet certain standard, at least really go out with a product where I wouldn't feel I'm screwing up completely. So yeah, with that said, this is a build guide for a warrior titan that I've been playing. And as you can see in the campaign, lots of fire, and maybe consider buying some sunglasses for this one, because if you really place down your fissures and your fissures from your forge hammer, oh boy, it is bright. It is bright. I recommend tuning down your brightness on your monitor when you're playing during the night. But yeah, the build actually feels super satisfying. However, it is definitely not your blasty, like lightning arrow Deadeye running at 200 movement speed and clearing screens and with single click of a button, all of that. This is more, I would say, standard PoE2 build. What I believe that the vision for PoE2 have been something like this build, where basically you're using your 1-2, or you're gonna hear me saying bread and butter a lot. Yeah, basically your 1-2 or bread and butter skill step process to actually clear with and all of that. But yeah, I actually quite enjoyed doing that, because it turns out that, yep, it is not Super Blaster, it is definitely not the fastest build, but it is damn satisfying to press your Volcanic Fissure and then Sunder on top of your Volcanic Fissure to proc all of the Aftershocks, to get a good AoE on your Volcanic Fissure, to clear those abysses like it's nothing, because you can just clear it from range, and yeah, all of that. So it is a blast to play. I love it, and definitely not going to be for everyone. If you're only after speed, then all I can say is probably go and look up for another video, because this is not gonna help you at all. But for some warrior, maybe some slower playstyle enjoyers, or if you want to play something a bit different than everyone else, this is the build for you. And I would say it is quite a all-rounded package. In PoE1 terms, this would be, I would say, called all-rounder build. And yeah, basically that means a build that can get you through anything in the game, but is not going to be excelling at anything. So it isn't the best single target, it isn't the best clearing, it isn't the best tankiness. However, the tankiness is quite good, I must say. Don't want to underestimate that. But yeah, it doesn't excel at anything, but is kind of good at everything. So that's the whole idea of a all-rounder build. And yeah, with that said, let's jump into the build. Alright, and now I gotta get this out of the way. I believe there's currently 2 bugs going on with the build. And the first involves Volcanic Fissure, unfortunately. And the bug I'm talking about is what I believe is a bug. I've done a ton of research, just scoured the Reddit, scoured the internet, and I didn't find anything about this. So I believe it's actually a kind of a new bug. I already made a report on the bug report site for GGG. And what's happening is, it feels like the initial hit of the Volcanic Fissure doesn't actually overlap with the single fissures. That means the initial hit even if the enemy is standing right here where it should be getting overlapped by all of the 4 fissures, it's not getting hit by all of the 4 fissures, but the aftershock from the volcanic fissure is actually gonna be overlapped. So the aftershock that you've just seen would be overlapping and hitting 4 times for each fissure, but the initial hit just for some reason wouldn't. I've tested it multiple times and unfortunately that's just how it is. As I said, I already made the report and yeah, it is unfortunate, but we're using the 1-2-step combo anyways, right? With Sunder. But yeah, talking about the 1-2-step combo, and again, it's involving our clear, and this time it's actually a Sunder, what I believe is a bug. And just, I'm gonna show it, I'm gonna try and explain it and show it real slow, because you might not have realized in the gameplay, but when you actually press your volcanic fissure and you Sunder on top of it, it's gonna cause aftershocks, right? But the aftershock from the Sunder itself, so basically a second Sunder, is gonna proc way more aftershocks than the initial slam. Just let me quickly show you here. I'm gonna press volcanic fissure, let it aftershock, and I'm gonna press Sunder. The first one did just 1 aftershock, and as you can see, the second one did like, I don't know, 6, 7. As you can see, it seems that the second aftershock actually counts, doesn't count as a singular slam, but each shockwave of the Sunder counts as its own slam, and it's causing its own aftershock. So that's what I believe is happening, and I don't know if that is actually intentional, if the Sunder should cause many aftershock like it does with the aftershock of Sunder, or if it should cause only 1. But I believe it should be the second way around, because if you just look at the skill, you can actually see that it's doing these multiple shockwaves, and the aftershock is actually proccing way more aftershocks. So that's why the clear sometimes can be quite blinding if you are fighting like this and you just start hamming your aftershocks or your Sunders. It's gonna look something like this, and believe me, I was considering buying sunglasses that I could put over my normal sunglasses multiple times with this build. It is a bit annoying. But yeah, these are the only bugs that I know of with the build. They're a bit annoying, but yeah, as you could have seen, it doesn't like make or break the build. You can play with these bugs and it's fine. What I actually believe those are bugs, not sure. As I said, didn't find anything, I reported it, but I believe it is a bug. So in terms of the Ascendancy, we're a Titan. Warrior ascended to Titan, and yeah, there's a couple of options that I can offer you, but the baseline I would say Ancestral Empowerment and Earthbreaker. Just for this build, these are the baseline 2 that I would recommend you to have at any cost. Why Ancestral Empowerment is a really big deal. Every second slam skill you use yourself is ancestrally boosted, because we're actually anointing Thirst of Kitava on our amulet. It's this node right here. And what Thirst of Kitava does, life leached from empowered attacks is instant. All attacks supported by Fist of War or empowered or ancestrally boosted, I should say, by Ancestral Empowerment count as being empowered. And as we've talked about snapshotting with Volcanic Fissure, all of these fissures that are now left on the ground, the damage leached from the aftershocks on these fissures is gonna be leached instantly, thanks to Thirst of Kitava. So this is huge snapshotting potential that really opens up some massive recovery on fights. But other than that, it is quite flexible. I wanted to go for more defensive setup, so I took Stone Skin, and Stone Skin giving us bunch of armor, and that is thanks to the modifiers like armor also applies to elemental damage. That is affecting both of our elemental damage taken and armor and physical damage taken by giving us more armor from equipped body armor. That's why we want body armor with as much flat armor as actually possible. And yeah, other than that, We're using Crushing Impacts because I wanted to go with the comfy play style of just heavy stunning everything that is on the screen. And it works perfectly because even with the bug mentioned, I usually just, with the one Volcanic Fissure, I heavy stun enemies, even if it's just normal enemies, even if it's just the hit that actually doesn't overlap. So Crushing Impact, just in case you know, you don't know, primed for stunned, that's why we use it. Normal enemies with at least 40% heavy stun build up, magic enemies 50% stun build up, and rare enemies 60% and unique at 70. What this essentially means is that for normal enemies, to heavy stun them, you actually need to fill only 40% of the heavy stun build up meter. For magic, 50%, for rare, 60%, and for unique, 70%, and after that, they're gonna be immediately heavy stunned. So that is perfect, both offensively, because we're utilizing a lot of nodes that give you increased damage to immobilized or heavy stunned enemies, and defensively, because, yeah, just if the enemies cannot perform actions, they cannot deal damage to you, so that's perfect. But if you really don't want Crushing Impact, I would consider dropping both Stone Skin and Crushing Impacts and getting for these in the middle with Colossal Capacity. That is mostly a meme, it's just extra backpack, but it's all worth it because of Hulking Form, and Hulking Form is just straight up broken because it increases the effect of all small modifiers by 50%, which would mean that, for example, this Happy Little 1 regenerate 0.2% of life would be regenerate 0.3% of life, or this would be 22.5% armor instead of 15, or this node would be 15% increased damage instead of 10% increased damage, right? You get the point. So, also powerful option, but I decided to do something different, and it's Crushing Blows and Crushing Impact, and Stone Skin. So let's cover the skill tree and the weapon set skill points here. So, just in case you don't know, the weapon set skill points are these colored points that we've got on the tree, these green ones and these red ones, and if you just want to see them a bit clearer, you can type some nonsense in there, and now we're gonna be able to see them much clearer. So these red ones are for weapon set 1, which is our one-handed weapon, and weapon set 2 is our big bonker, our two-hander. And yeah, basically you allocate these weapon set nodes. If you allocate them, for example, for weapon set 2, they're only gonna be used by weapon set 2, which is your two-hander in this case, and vice versa for the weapon set 1. So yeah, what we're doing here, I'm just gonna quickly run over the most important nodes, and I'm gonna start with blood magic. Since I didn't want to worry about any mana costs or trying to figure out how to get mana leech or anything, I just decided, yeah, screw that, I'm gonna go blood magic. I'm gonna pay all my all my mana costs in life, and this way I just get don't have to worry about mana costs, and I'll just have to worry about life costs, which I'm basically solving by physical damage leached, physical attack damage leached as life, and that's it, and the regen, of course. But yeah, other than that, pretty damn important, I would say, nodes are, there's not anything that is crazy important, like you can just get inspired and get other nodes, but I want to talk about some underrated nodes on the skill tree. So I would say start with these 4 nodes right here, because each one of these small nodes, and I'm just gonna remove this one so you can see what they're actually doing. Each one of these small is 2% maximum rage, and 2% maximum rage strictly equals to 2% more damage multiplier, which is great, and this big node then is 8. So you're getting 14 more maximum rage, which is great, which is basically 14% more damage. And also the nodes like these that apply, make your armor apply to elemental damage as well as physical damage. These are super powerful. If I would have the points, I would probably also go here for these 3, but I don't currently. I'm only level 92. So yeah, points like these I would say pretty underrated. And talking about underrated nodes, this one right here, defend with 200% armor against critical hits. This just, in my opinion, this just fixed the problem in my increased critical strike chance and crit multiplier maps. Like, yeah, if a boss crits you, you're still gonna feel it, and sometimes you're gonna get one-shotted, but after taking this node, it is just night and day difference. I would highly recommend it, because this 200% armor against critical hits doesn't work only for your usual physical hits, but thanks to our armor also being applied to elemental damage, this node actually enables these critical hits armor applied to the critical hits with elemental damage also, because of our armor, right? So this node, I would say, pretty underrated, pretty damn powerful. And also this one gains stun threshold equal to 30% of item armor on your recruit armor items. You can do the counting for yourself, because 2000 armor, 550 armor, 300 armor, and 250 armor, 30% of that just goes straight up as an additional stun threshold, and that's why I'm never getting stunned. Just this node right here alone makes it enough, I guess. So yeah, other than that, let's just talk about the weapon sets a little. And let's start talking about the weapon set 1. And start off with these notes right here for Shadowing Blow for only weapon set 1. Because, as I said, on weapon set 2, the only thing we're using weapon set 2 on is Hammer of the Gods, and the Hammer of the Gods' purpose is not to heavy stun, it is not to be defensive, and anything like that. It has one purpose, it's to deal the big bonk. So anything that says increased damage, we pick it up on weapon set 2, and any quality of life and any stun build up, all of that we're taking on weapon set 1. So this thing break 50% of armor on heavy stunning an enemy. With how much we're heavy stunning, for example, against a normal enemy, one hit, just like that, the enemy is heavy stunned. And if it's a normal enemy or a magic enemy, this actually means that with that one hit, the enemy is actually armor broken too, because you break 3 times more armor against normal monsters and 2 times more against magic monsters, which means that against normal, you're breaking more than 100% armor, which means that they're basically on a 0 armor as soon as you hit them, as well as magic monsters. And for rare monsters and unique monsters, this applies too, because all of our other skills except for Hammer of the Gods we're using on weapon set 1, which is our one-hander. But that's why on Rolling Slam we're using Armor Break, because if you heavy stun a boss with your weapon set 1 thanks to this node, unless you get 100% increased armor break, the boss, as soon as it get heavy stun, it would only have 50% of its armor broken. If you would scale 100% increased armor break, it would actually scale the 50% to 100%, because 50 plus 100% is 100%, right? So, but yeah, you can actually bypass that and save the points from your skill tree by just getting armor break on your Rolling Slam. And other than that, it's area of effect and stun build up pretty much everywhere on the skill tree, and some attack speed to make it feel good. As well as here, one-handed weapons, attack speed, as well as here, ancestrally boosted attacks, area of effect, and some more attack speed right here. And for the weapon set 2, where, as I said, it says increased damage, we pick it up. So increased damage with two-handers right here, and increased damage with empowered attacks right here. And empowered attacks, by the way, any attack supported by Fist of War counts as being empowered. Ancestrally boosted attack, you can see it right here. Ancestrally boosted attack count as being empowered. It's not only from War Cries, so this also counts with Fist of War. So notes like these with 16% increased damage are quite a big deal in my opinion. So yeah, other than that, 25% the physical damage as extra fire against heavy stun enemies, just bunch of fire damage against heavy stunned, bunch of damage here against enemies at close range, and also a bunch of fire penetration with these nodes right here and damage against burning enemies. Because on our Hammer of the Gods, since we're doing mostly physical damage with our Hammer of the Gods, with this setup, I'm not actually using fire penetration, so that's why I need to get some extra penetration into the build in form of these little nodes. But the other possibility would be just removing all of the penetration nodes and, for example, on your two-handed big bonker, getting, instead of damage as extra physical, gaining damage as extra fire and getting multiple sources of that stat, like damage as extra fire, and then swapping Hourglass to something like Rakiata's Flow and actually dealing mostly fire damage with your Hammer of the Gods could be a great option too. Maybe it would even result into some really juicy ignites. Guess I'll leave that for you to test, but I decided to stick with this physical version. So that's essentially the skill tree, the weapon swap. And in terms of jewels we're using in this build, I'm using a Megalomaniac with perfect opportunity. That's this node right here. Increased stun build up 30%, which is great. And also damage with hits is lucky against heavy stun enemies. That is perfect, especially if you're using a base that has quite a big roll ranges. For example, if you would be using a Sacred Maul or something like that, lucky damage is always nice. Just in case you don't know, lucky damage means that it basically checks for the damage dealt number twice and it picks the iron outcome. So if the first time we would choose, if the first time you would do 1000 damage and the second time you would do 2000 damage, it would pick the 2000 damage and deal that instead of the 1000 damage. That's how lucky damage works. And yeah, other jewels, Heart of the Well, get just, I would say, mainly trying to get increased armor from equipped body armor. That is absolutely phenomenal. And damage as extra fire. Heart of the Well, love the jewels. And yeah, just simple boost like that. And for the last jewel here, I'm using just, this is actually solo self-found. This, just don't even look at it. It is really not that good. But I would advise you to use something like this. Against the Darkness, with small passive skills, grant Chaos Rest, 3 is the maximum, and small passive skills, grant Elemental Resist, 4 is the maximum, and get something like this, with any resist that you can, and actually socket it in here. It's gonna have the same radius, and so you will get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 nodes affected by the Against the Darkness, which means 8 times 3, that's 24 Chaos Rest from these small nodes, and what, like 32 Elemental Rest from these small nodes, either Fire, Cold, or Lightning. So I would say this is a great opportunity to use some Against the Darkness for resists, and that basically would free 2 suffixes, maybe even more, on your gear that you can get either for whatever. It could be more leech, it could be attributes, it could be just opting for more budget setup with cheaper rings, it could be getting more rarity, it could mean anything like that. I would really say that Against the Darkness in this spot is ideal, and unfortunately I'm not using it because it would I'm already capped on resists, and it would require me to just ditch all of my gear and remake the character basically again with new balance of the gear and resists and all of that. So yeah, keep that in mind. That's also an option. So let's cover the skill gems we're using on this build. First of all, let's start off with the most important. That's Volcanic Fissure, our main clearing ability, linked with Fist of War 2, Elemental Armament 2, Rage 3, Fire Penetration 2, and Calm's Madness. Very important. So let's start off with the Fist of War. If you're going to empower your Volcanic Fissure, it's gonna look like this. The empowered attack, it's gonna leave these jade stones on the ground. And what's it gonna do is, it's gonna give it more area of effect or increased area of effect and more damage. But why we're actually using this if we're bouncing between Sunder and Volcanic Fissure for clearing? Because this snapshots. That means if it's ancestrally boosted, we can use it on bosses, and the aftershocks that we're gonna cause with our other skills are gonna carry the ancestrally boosted damage. That is great because this has 12 seconds duration, so you just do 2 Volcanic Fissure before the fight, and then you just press your other skills and you're gonna cause these aftershocks that are gonna be empowered because they aftershocks carry the damage that they initially did, right? So yeah. And now the other most important one, Chaos Madness. And why not Upheaval 2 or 3 or whatever it is? Because Chaos Madness giving us 3 additional fissures. And the Upheaval 2 is gonna give us only 2 additional fissures. And maximum fissures with Volcanic Fissure is 8 fissures. So we're gonna do 1 base plus 3 with this support gem right here. So that puts us in a place where we need to do only 2 of our Volcanic Fissures to reach the 8 maximum limit of Volcanic Fissure. If you would do another one, as you can see, you're gonna remove the old fissures. So yeah, with this support we can manage to do only 2 fissures, and thanks to our Fist of War support and Ancestral Empowerment, they're both gonna be basically snapshotted and empowered. And then the other important one, Rage. This is gonna help us a lot. The attack speed is great because of clearing. Once you're actually not on your full attack speed, you can just you've just got more attack speed, right? But the thing is, as I said, it snapshots. Even those aftershocks you cause on those Volcanic Fissures are gonna be still supported by the Rage. So this way you can just passively generate Rage in a boss fight, and you don't have to worry about pressing your Volcanic Fissure like this until you're actually at full Rage. Because those aftershocks of Volcanic Fissures caused by other skills are gonna be giving you Rage. And yeah, then just Elemental Armament for damage and Fire Penetration for fire penetration. Then Rolling Slam, the same story here. Fist of War 2, Aftershock 2, very important because that puts us to over 100% Aftershock chance, I believe. Nope, it's 95 currently. Without it, it's only 60. And Aftershocks from other skills are gonna cause additional Aftershocks on the Volcanic Fissures, so very important to do that right here. Then Armor Break 3. It doesn't actually have to be Armor Break 3, but I would recommend going for Armor Break. Then I'm using Fire Penetration, but just any other more damage support might be a decent substitute here. But since I'm wearing the Sacred Flame, I'm doing quite a lot of damage with my Rolling Slam, so I decided to go for that. And then Close Combat. And why the Armor Break? The Armor Break is because that's essentially how we fully armor break our enemy, like I mean in a boss fight scenario. And why not just spec this node right here and then spec 100% increased armor break against on heavy stunning an enemy, which would put us to 100% armor break against on heavy stunning a unique enemy, right? It's because essentially because of Scavenged Plating. Because Scavenged Plating has a duration. Currently the duration is 13.5 seconds. And there's no guarantee that you're gonna be able to heavy stun the boss again in that window. So for a better uptime of Scavenged Plating, I decided to drop the increased armor break nodes on the skill tree. That means we're gonna be left up with more points that we can spend on damage. And then we just armor break the enemy with our Rolling Slam, and still the boss is gonna be 50% armor broken on heavy stunning anyways, because we are using our Rolling Slam on weapon set 1, and on weapon set 1 we have the Shattering Blow notable. So yeah, our big bong single target, Hammer of the Gods with Fist of War 3, there's just no doubt this is gonna double the effects of ancestrally boosted attacks, which means 50% increased area of effect and 60% more damage. We're barely using it more than this, so it is actually fine. Then Aftershocks, because again, this puts us to over 100% Aftershock chance, as you can see right here, 103% chance for Aftershock. Rage Forged 2, we're gonna consume 10 rage and deal 35% more damage with the skill. Then Hourglass for 30% more damage, although I would say that the endgame version would use something like this support right here, Atalui's Bloodletting. And what's this gonna do? It's gonna give us a huge cost multiplier, and it's actually going to give us damage as extra physical based on 10 per 10 life cost of the skill. So currently, as you can see, it's 333 life cost, and this is a huge, like 50% cost multiplier. So per every 10 life cost, we're gonna get 20% damage as extra physical. So even if the life cost would stay the same as we have right now, which is 333, this support alone would give us 66.6% damage as extra physical, which is a huge deal. So I would replace Hourglass for Atalui's Bloodletting, and then I'm using Close Combat, because pretty much every time you press a hammer, you're near the enemy. So this has full effect. Then we're using Forge Hammer with Fist of War 3 again, because we're barely pressing this, and again snapshotting with the fissures. And just in case you're wondering, the fissures from your Forge Hammer are not gonna be replacing the fissures created by your Volcanic Fissure, so you can freely use both together with no downside whatsoever. So other than that, Fire Attunement, Aftershock again, just for a chance to cause Aftershock on the initial slam, and Rage Forge 2, again with Fire Penetration 2, because even though the impact itself doesn't deal that much fire damage, the fissures are what we are actually after with these skills, and there's 100% damage conversion to fire, and they're dealing even higher base attack damage than the fissures from Volcanic Fissure. So yeah, really good. Then with Sunder, we're full utility on Sunder. That means Prolonged Duration 2, Aftershock 2, Jagged Ground 2, Rapid Attacks 3, and Rigwald's Ferocity. Again, we're using this on weapon set 1, which is our one-hander that is faster. That's why our Sunder is fast like this. And why this full utility setup? If you can go for damage, yes, if you really want to, you can definitely go for damage. But since the duration of Sundered Armor is only 6 seconds, I wanted definitely to use Prolonged Duration. So as you can see, it goes from 6 seconds to 8.1 seconds. Aftershock combined with Jagged Ground 2, because we've got, I believe, almost 95% chance for Aftershock, so almost guaranteed Aftershock, and those Aftershocks with Sunder are gonna cause Jagged Ground, which is gonna be 20% slow in an area of effect. And then Rapid Attacks 3, because as I said, we don't actually care about damage on this skill, we just care about proccing our Sunders on the Volcanic Fissures, as you can see. And then Rigwald's Ferocity, again, we don't care about damage, we only care about attack speed, and without these supports, my attack speed would be absolutely terrible. As you can see, much slower. And in terms of clearing, I actually wanted to give you some other option, and that is you can actually use Stampede instead of Sunder for clearing, and it works quite nicely. How it would look like, it's just, again, as with the bread and butter with Volcanic Fissure and Sunder, now your bread and butter would be Volcanic Fissure and Stampede. And each of the stomps of Stampede is gonna cause its own Aftershock, and it's gonna push you forwards, which in some scenarios it could be a huge upside, right? Sorry. But for me, I just really don't like the functionality of the Stampede. I just don't like how it sometimes bounces you, and if you crush into something, sometimes it just straight up deflects you into a different direction where you wanna go. Yeah, as you could have seen right now, it just deflected me from the chest right here to the left side, and I hate that it does that. From the first time that I've played with Stampede, after this thing happened to me a couple of times in a row, I just decided, no, I'm never gonna be using Stampede again. But I just wanted to highlight it as another option that you could be using instead of Sunder. But I personally am never gonna be switching to Stampede because I just hate the skill, even if it looks cool, as it does. I just hate the functionality, and I'm never gonna be playing with Stampede ever again. But yeah, if you like Stampede and you actually don't feel all of these downsides, go ahead and yeah, feel free to use Stampede. It felt pretty damn nice on open layout maps where there's not much to get stuck on. So yeah, Stampede also a great option. For the rest of the skill gems, it's Seismic Cry with Tireless, Raging Cry, and Magnified Area, just so we get some more area coverage to pop our hammer like this. And the idea is not just to use it as a popping the Forge Hammer, but also to use it before you're about to do Hammer of the Gods, because this is gonna give you one additional guaranteed Aftershocks, which means we're gonna have the initial hit of Hammer of the Gods, our base Aftershock with Hammer of the Gods, and additional one from Seismic Cry. So that's the whole idea of using Seismic Cry. Pop Forge Hammer and Aftershock for Hammer of the Gods. Other than that, Herald of Ash linked with Cannibalism, Fire Mastery, Magnified Area, and Deadly Herald, as well as Overwhelming Presence with Uthred's Exodus, just to get some plus levels to scale the reduced stun and ailment threshold of enemies even lower. Then Scavenged Plating, and it's linked with Prolonged Duration, Vitality, and Physical Mastery, as well as War Banner, actually 6 linked with Prolonged Duration, Magnified Area, Expanse, Cooldown Recovery, and Duresso's Passion. And with all of these, our duration of the War Banner is 12.15 seconds, which is more than enough to generate enough glory to get another War Banner going. So this essentially is permanent uptime on bosses. Now let's actually talk about one interesting skill that we've got happening with our build, and that's the Purity of Fire that we're getting from the Sacred Flame. And why do I want to talk about it? Because it just gives you a bunch of fire resist, and mainly because I don't actually know if this is a bug or if it's intentional, but I bet that it's intentional, because if it would be a bug, it would be solved a long time ago. And especially during the last league when everyone was running Sacred Flame, and that's supporting like your Purity of Fire with support gems that consume Spirit, like Cannibalism, Vitality, or Precision. And what's happening here? You're getting these supports with essentially no cost. And let me show you. Currently, I've got my Vitality 1 socketed here in Purity of Fire, right? And as you can see, 105 life regen. I take it out, it's 78. I take it, and my spirit didn't go up. I take it back, put it back, and it's 105 again, and my spirit didn't go down. So as you can see, I'm having these supports essentially for free. So yeah, I'm linking in just some extra regen and some Cannibalism for max life recovery on kill, because that's just perfect for clearing, and we are mainly using this setup for clearing, right? And some additional accuracy that is nice for the Volcanic Fissures, because the area on Volcanic Fissure gets quite big and it reaches like off screen, so this helps us with actually hitting those monsters off screen. So the single target rotation, sorry, I'm gonna try to explain it in theory and then show you how to actually pull it off. And first of all, you want to start with presetting your Volcanic Fissure, ideally to empower it like this. And then once the boss actually spawns, you throw your Forge Hammer, and then don't explode it just yet. Then just start using your Rolling Slam until the boss is heavy stunned and armor broken. By the way, the boss will be definitely armor broken before it is heavy stun. But yeah, when it's actually heavy stunned, then you're gonna be pressing, I'm gonna just show you again, the Forge Hammer. And now imagine he's heavy stunned, then you're gonna be pressing Seismic Cry, and that's gonna explode your Forge Hammer. And then just after you pressed Seismic Cry, you press Hammer of the Gods to get 2 guaranteed Aftershocks on your Hammer of the Gods. And before all of that, ideally press Warbanner to get the 25% more damage bonus. It sounds complicated, but in practice, it is really not. Usually what I just do, usually, not every time, but usually you can just also manage to turn off your brain and just go and press your Rolling Slam and occasionally Hammer of the Gods, and it will work too. This is just the optimal single target rotation, so let's actually show you how it looks. Bomb, bomb. Now actually do this and Rolling Slam, just like that. Now the boss is heavy stunned, use Hammer of the Gods and Sunder, and bam. Just like this, the boss is almost dead, right? And if I would actually press my Warbanner... Oh, perfect. Perfect. If I would actually... Let me pick it up first. If I would actually press my Warbanner, I would most likely pretty much one-shot the boss with Hammer of the Gods, right? But as you could have seen, even though I failed the combo, it still did a shit ton of damage, and it felt really good to do so. So, yeah, don't stress it too much. That is just the pure, perfect single target rotation scenario. Okay, now for the items we're using, and let's actually start off with the weapons and why we're using one-hander and a stat stick in offhand. It's actually because the inherent downside of Volcanic Fissure, and that's the while dual wielding both weapons hit with 30% less attack speed. And that is a huge downside, so our attack speed would basically be 30% less, and you don't want that on your clearing skill, right? So that's why we're using a one-hander and a stat stick, because if you're dual wielding with the stat stick, that stat stick doesn't count as dual wielding for the Volcanic Fissure, if you get what I mean, because you're actually not going to hit with your scepter, since it's a scepter and not a mace, so you're hitting only with your main hand mace, and this works as a stat stick and gives us quite a bunch of damage as extra fire, right? So that's why we decided to use mace like that. And if you're wondering how to craft that, the link for that will be in the description, and in that you will be able to see me craft exactly this same weapon, as well as there will be a link in the description where I crafted exactly this mace right here. And talking about this mace right here, this serves one purpose and one purpose only. It's our big bonker for Hammer of the Gods. So this weapon set, basically weapon set 2, and this weapon is bound to only one thing. As you can see, it's Hammer of the Gods, and it's very important to have your Hammer of the Gods clicked on your weapon set 2, because if you would have it clicked on both, what could happen is, if I would now press Hammer of the Gods, it wouldn't switch to weapon set 2, and it would keep the weapon set 1. So you actually have to have it set up for weapon set 2 for it to use the big bonker. And yeah, other than that, the other items, it is quite simple actually. It's just 4 stats, or maybe 5, all across your gear. So first of all, you actually want to balance your attributes on all of your gear, right? And that depends on how much you've got on your skill tree and how much you've got on your different items. So you want to balance your attributes so you can actually use your scepter on weapon set 1, and on weapon set 2 you actually have not much of the use for the intelligence, so on weapon set 2 you don't need that much intelligence. And yeah, so we're trying to get as much armor as we possibly can get, as much life as we can get, resists of course, and very very important, cap your chaos res. I know that pretty much the only chaos damage in the game is like purple, but if you encounter chaos damage on a life build, with no block or anything, you're gonna goddamn feel it if you don't have any Chaos Rest. Even though I have some, like, I'm kept on Chaos Rest, I still feel Chaos damage when it hits me, and it hits like a truck. So on warrior build like this, where you're definitely gonna get hit, I would really recommend getting your Chaos Rest kept, or as close to kept as possible. And yeah, other than life, armor, resists, we're trying to balance the attributes, as I said, all across our items. And we're after the stat armor also applies to elemental damage, and as you can see, I've got currently 22.5k armor, and against elemental damage, we've got actually more armor. So our armor is technically more effective against elemental damage than physical. I know it sounds weird, but it is really good. And this stat, basically everyone like underrated it, including me. When I first saw the announcement, I really didn't think this is gonna do that much, but it feels oh so good. So yeah, this stat really good. And if you can get rarity, and as much you can get of it, because rarity just equals more currency. It is what it is. Currently is the stat of the game, I would say. Rarity equals currency. Definitely. Or literally. So yeah. And that's the same deal about all of our other armor pieces. It's just, again, resists, life, and armor, and the armor applies to elemental damage. Body armor. On your body armor, I would actually encourage you to get as much armor as you can get, and maybe even forget that life exists. Because on your body armor, you're gonna get so much flat armor. As you can see, I've got 22.5k just sitting in my hideout, and without my body armor, I'm down to 7k armor. So, yeah, getting as much armor as you can get on your body armor, because we're using nodes like this on the skill tree, increased armor from equipped body armor, or we're using actually the increased armor from equipped body armor on Heart of the Well. I would really recommend that. It is extra couple thousand armor. Let's just see, 22.5, and without it, it's 21. So yeah, 1500 armor extra. And we're also using the stone skin notable of the Ascendancy, where our body armor gives us 50% more armor, or basically has a 50% more armor multiplier. So I would really recommend getting more armor on your body armor, and forget that life exists. Then with boots, get some movement speed. I'm playing on only 25 movement speed, and it felt good so far. Since the addition of sprint, I'm not focused on movement speed on boots so much, because yeah, in between packs you're just gonna sprint anyways, and I don't know, like plus 50 movement speed from sprinting is enough for me. But for dodge rolling and for the comfiness on bosses, I would say you should get at least some amount of movement speed. And other than that, again, armor resists, armor applies to elemental damage, and life. That's it. And then we come to the belt slot. I would highly encourage you to get a plate belt, because you can get the armor implicit on a belt, and you can get quite a lot of armor from your belt actually. I would say upwards like 400 flat armor, and that's a lot to have on a belt. And then just, I mean, life, attribute, resists, and that's pretty much it. Nothing really important other than that. Our gloves, however, and prepare your budget, because gloves are gonna be expensive. And when I was buying these, I really did not expect they're gonna be expensive this much. And gloves like these, they don't even look that amazing, right? They've got like dexterity, tier 3 dexterity, tier 3 attack speed. They've got the plus melee skills for sure. But other than that, it's tier 6 hybrid. Like, they just don't look so juicy to me, and they cost me like 4 divines or something, and they were one of the cheapest on the trade. So prepare your budget for gloves. Maybe the prices are different right now. So, but yeah, I would highly encourage you to get some good offensive gloves. The attack speed for the feels good of using your Sunder and your Volcanic Fissure while clearing, and then the plus level is important for overall damage, of course. Then for at least one of our rings, we absolutely have to have physical damage leached as life, because we're blood magic actually, and we don't spend enough mana, so we want to get that life leached back that we are spending for our skills. So at least one roll of physical attack damage leached as life should be enough. And other than that, it's just life, flat damage to attacks. I went with only flat fizz, and life, resists, maybe attributes, and rarity of items found again, and pretty much the same for both of your rings. But however, I should mention, if you want to play exactly the same setup as I'm playing right now, you should and actually have to get at least one unset ring, because all of these skills that I'm using and comboing together. However, if you don't want to bother with that, I would most likely just drop Forge Hammer from the build, because yeah, just sometimes I'm not even using it, or I actually use it incorrectly on the single target rotation. But even then, it is super fun skill to use. It looks satisfying. It deals a crap ton of damage, so I don't really want to drop that one. And I am using an unset ring, and I don't mind. The good thing about unset rings is, since no one wants them, everyone is playing one button build, or most of the players are trying to play one button builds. No one wants unset rings. These are always cheap. So if you would compare unset ring to pretty much any other ring in the game with the same stat, the unset ring is always gonna be quite a bit cheaper. So that's an upside about them. And for the amulet, I managed to get a base with rarity again, but other than that, what you really want to get here, and amulets can be, I would say, even the most expensive thing in the build to spend your currency on. What you want to get is plus melee skills. I got +2, you can get +3, so I would encourage you to get +3. And the other most important stuff here actually would be high flat life and high percentage increased maximum life. So these are the 3 core stats, and if you're looking for amulets with these stats already, it's already going to be expensive, especially if you want it on a good base like I have right here with the rarity. And other than that, perfect would be in terms of prefix if instead of the energy shield, if instead of it I would have increased armor or desecrated increased armor from your equipped body armor. That would be absolutely bonkers. Or just rarity again, that would also be great. And for the suffixes, again, any like attributes or resists would also be perfect. And that's pretty much all of the items. In terms of the charms, I'm currently using Sanguis Heronum, or how should I pronounce it? It is just an anti-bleed charm. Bleeding can be quite big of a deal for this build, since we are protected against hits with our armor, but bleeding is not a hit and armor doesn't affect that. So we actually, on those maps where monsters have a chance to bleed as a modifier, it becomes quite a problem. So I'm using this charm. Not only that it removes the bleeding and grants you immunity to bleeding, it also creates Calm Ground, and Calm Ground gives you 5% life regen and 50% reduced effect of curses on you, which is absolutely perfect. I think this is a pretty underrated charm and I love it. And the other charm, should I even explain why Silver Charm? I think I should still. It's a build guide, so I should. But yeah, this league, anti-slow charm, that means Silver Charm, I think it's pretty much the necessity. Not just because of temporal chains cursing you. If you don't manage to dodge roll out of temporal chains, and with this build, since this beautiful visual clarity we have with this build, sometimes you're just not gonna be able to see those temp chains. This is gonna help you against that, because it's actually going to remove the slow from temporal chains. And also everyone's nemesis this league, the chilled ground modifier. This is just gonna completely disable the chilled ground modifier as soon as you step on it. So Silver Charm, just, I would say, a necessity on pretty much every build this league. So yeah, Silver Charm. And other than that, I'm using actually Dowsing Charm. Some of the Abyss monsters are just applying crazy big ignites, and a lot of them so I'm just using Dowsing Charm to get immunity to ignite, basically just for the abysses. And other than that, I don't really need freeze or anti-stun charm because I'm barely getting frozen or stunned even on maps where there's stun build-up or freeze build-up on the monsters. And in terms of leveling of the build, I don't actually have a build guide on leveling, but what I would recommend, I would use most likely any of the leveling guides on Maxroll. The link to this will be in the description below. And you just click leveling here, and then you pick up, in this scenario, most likely just a Titan leveling build, Bone Shatter. That's basically what I was doing during the leveling with this build. I was basically, my bread and butter was Rolling Slam and Bone Shatter, until I actually got to Volcanic Fissure on level 22. And then I started doing that, combine it with Bone Shatter, and later on I switched just to Volcanic Fissure and Rolling Slam. But for the Volcanic Fissure to feel good, I would say you need a one-hander, so, or at least a decent attack speed two-hander. So maybe I was actually leveling with just two-handers, something like this on a level 30 or 28 is the level requirement for this weapon. Something like this could be a really decent weapon, and I was using this, I think, all the way to interludes. So I would recommend doing that. Other than that, just Act 1, you slap on Hrimnor's Hymn, and basically all of your Act 1 is figured out, and you don't have to worry about anything. But yeah, I would say use some of the leveling guides on Maxroll. Unfortunately, I don't have my own leveling guide, but in terms of switching to the Volcanic Fissure playstyle, I would say you can switch as soon as you get it to the Volcanic Fissure. And keep in mind, if you're leveling a new character, you can actually buy yourselves uncut gems at Ench. So you can actually buy yourself tier 5 supports, and you can start using these tier 5 supports as soon as you get to the first zone where you can equip the items, which would be Lion Ice Fall, or sorry, not Lion Ice Fall, but the other one. Yeah, so keep in mind, you can absolutely use, there's no level requirement on the tiered supports. You can actually absolutely use the higher level tiered support gems even on level 1. So yeah, you can actually do the switch as soon as you really want to. And yeah, this was pretty much everything about the build. As I said, I really like the build. I really like the balance between the single target and the actual clear. As I said in the gameplay section, I know it is not your super massive clearing machine like Lightning Arrow Deadeyes or whatever, nor it is the fastest, nor it is the best single target or defense. But if I would describe this build in one sentence, it would be great all-rounder. I would say it like that. It would be great all-rounder, kind of that like League start scenario build where you're trying to build something, even though I'm using some higher end weapon like Sacred Flames and all of that. But yeah, in my opinion, great all-rounder, can do anything, can do clearing, can do single target, and the clearing portion, even though it isn't the fastest, it looks impressive and it feels damn good. So yeah, I am more than happy with the build, but for me, it is actually time to move on to another build, hopefully one that will be even better than this one. We shall see about that. But yeah, with that said, thank you very much for watching, Exiles. Feedback would be very much appreciated on this video. This is my first proper build guide. I took my sweet time before making a proper build guide because I believe that certain standards should be met, and hopefully I did a good job about these certain standards in build guides. So yeah, hopefully you're actually gonna enjoy that. Much luck to you, Exiles, and see you in the next one.